Record on my end if that.
Okay, I think I did it there. Okay, so just jumping right in. I think I probably need to take a few breaths. That was really anxiety provoking. So, um, you guys know you're here for identifying your quality of life team, our caregiver workshop. I'll share a little bit about what initiative that's under in one of the slides to come. But generally, what we'll be talking about here is just identifying the best team members for helping you or helping your family thrive and sort of blossom in your unique caregiver journey, in our unique caregiver journey, or in your loved one's journey for of navigating their different abilities, whether they're at the beginning of that or some years in. But that's basically what we'll be addressing here. So this is our agenda. I'm hoping to be as concise as possible. But generally just I'll talk about what the programs are here with Vision for Equality that we are operating from, what is a quality of life team, what it looks like to be without one, and considerations for how we should create one. And some of the references I'll be using will be noted in this presentation, and whoever signed up for it will end up getting the slides here, and you'll be able to see those links if you want to look into them a little bit further. So I'm Sherelle Robinson, and I'm under the Systems Navigation Initiative and the Trauma Informed Care Project under Philadelphia Family Supports with Vision for Equality. So that's a lot. But so generally, I basically help families like mine, um, those with different abilities with disabilities navigate the systems that we have to interact with because we're in this world. But generally, I come from a professional background of a little bit of support in law and business and some education as well. But from human services, I was doing some counseling, helping the community basically identify different mental health concepts and increase their access to resources. And I'm a mother of a neurotypical teenager and a neurodivergent toddler. So she is on the spectrum. She is also diagnosed with ADHD and has a complex medical history as well. So I can identify with the caregiver's journey, not just from a parent's perspective, but I was a caregiver for my late father as well as my grandmother who had dementia. So I can identify with caregivers and disabled individuals on that level. So I'm helping families that are like mine. And Shu, who you just heard, is our program manager. I think, do you want to share, Shu? Some of your, it'll be easier.
Yeah, just briefly here, I'm sure Allegra
Okay.
mentioned a few minutes ago. I'm the program manager of the for Philly Family Support Projects, which you'll hear a little bit more here. I'll sure will give you a little background of the projects that go underneath that department per se. I'm also a parent. I have three children who identify as neurodivergent, and we have a lot of diagnoses in our family, but my kids are the ones who got me into this field in the beginning. And then I later on developed my own disability. So I'm also a person with disability. So I do this not just because it's work, but like Sherelle was sharing earlier, this is life for us, right? So we live this, and it's a joy and an honor to be here supporting other families just like ours.
Thanks, Shu. And I am gonna try and blur here. I know I'm sharing my screen so you guys can see every sneaky thing I do, but um, so there's that. And next, just basically what does Philly Family Support Projects do? Um, so I tried to put it in a way where it looks like you guys can sort of see how it branches out into all of these different ways of helping the community. So Vision for Equality obviously is the overarching company. Philadelphia Family Support Projects is under Vision for Equality. And then you have those branches, what we just were talking about. So systems navigation, trauma informed care, and Birth to Five Project. And this is just a little bit of the basic idea of what each initiative sort of focuses on. But across the board, all of them are basically offering support resources, peer support, as well as empowerment. But they just do that in different ways. So I'll go through them as they're like highlighted. So systems navigation, which I mentioned, I'm predominantly under, is offering some peer support, resources for learning, helping families learn how to manage or navigate the disability systems that we come across in Philadelphia, and sharing positive approaches to the challenges that are unique to us. Because mainly we understand us. So having it be not just a professional connection, but also that we're living similar elements of the same life a little bit. I can share different things in that respect, and also decrease families' feelings of isolation, and obviously increasing their access to connection and resources, as I mentioned earlier. And the next program is the trauma informed care, that's what this workshop is a part of. That's what the support groups are a part of. So it's trainings like some of those mentioned here, as well as access to 3 free therapy sessions, but it's first come, first serve. There's also the support groups that happen multiple times during the month. You usually can go to the website and look under events, and you'll see them there, or on our social pages like the Facebook page, and peer-to-peer support again. And the next one is the Birth to Five Project, which specifically focuses on that age group. So birth to 5 years old. I did miss that in systems navigation, that is from age 6 years old to the end of the lifespan. So that's what I help with. But Birth to Five Project is obviously families with younger children, and sharing what's called life course tools to basically help families plan how to meet their goals, whether they be big or small. Also connecting them with a similar peer who's living a similar life. The empowerment is still there, and also the peer support, providing a safe place to process the different things that this particular group deals with specifically as well. So on to what we're specifically talking about. What is a quality of life team? So why it's important is because it's noted from one source, which will be on the resource page. We function best mentally when we can create a village or a sort of portfolio of supportive people, because we're social beings. So it's important to have like a core set of individuals in our quote unquote village, who are key to helping us manage our lives in ways that help us thrive, not just help us like survive and get through the day to day, but helps us in the long term, whether that's individually or our family as a whole. And that can be someone as simple as like a babysitter, or somebody who maybe they only are able to come around and help cook meals, or maybe they connect you to resources, or you might have a partner in fun where this is somebody who, when you want to go and socialize or you want to go out, this is who you connect with. Or maybe you'll have an accountability partner, or somebody who primarily provides you financial assistance, or just somebody who, if you're around in a social manner, they just help lighten your mood. These are all individuals who can be a part of your quality of life team. So the biggest thing is basically a supportive environment is what a quality of life team is sort of helping you build. And that's the biggest thing. So a supportive environment is one that obviously nurtures your ambitions, your goals, and helps you meet different needs in different domains. So whether that's emotionally, whether that's physically, for instance, you might have an accountability partner that helps you exercise, or they exercise with you, things like that. And keys to these relationships, or creating the supportive environment with your quality of life team members, is about having positive connections and relationships. That's the key thing. So we all can have relationships or connections. That's easy to do, but are they positive? Do they hold a foundation of mutual respect? Is there trust both ways? Is the communication open, or do you feel like you need to walk on eggshells around certain individuals? That's how you'll be able to differentiate whether or not these people should be a part of your quality of life team. Also, some of the offerings when you have a quality of life team in a supportive environment is that they actually celebrate your wins. They're actually understanding. There might be unconditional love depending on who it is. And also that there's some recognition. So recognition is a huge thing. I say, in my experience as a caregiver, I've experienced individuals who some people like to compete and struggle. So what I mean is, they might feel like what you're dealing with is not as tough as mine. Like, yeah, that might be tough, but listen to what I went through. So some people might discount, or actually not even appreciate the reality of what you experienced. They might even deny that you or your loved one might have a different ability if they can't see it, things like that. So you need people who actually respect and trust that you know what you're talking about, or that you know what you're experiencing, and can recognize and appreciate what is unique about your experience. So that's a part of having a supportive environment, and a quality of life team. And also, from the offerings in the supportive environment, obviously all of these things won't come from a single person. For instance, we're not going to expect unconditional love from a neighbor. That's not going to happen, or an associate. But rather, like, your neighbor may offer what's noted here, some understanding, whereas a relative is the one who might offer true appreciation or unconditional love. So don't think that we need to go through like a checklist of, does this person do all of these things? Some people can offer certain things and others offer others. So you're kind of piecing together, who's good at what, or what they can provide, rather. So who might be some potential team members? So that might be professionals, associates, or family and friends. So obviously there are, these are like the most common categories that your quality of life team members might fall under. And it basically just gives us like an organized way to think of who we have access to. So it doesn't feel overwhelming to sort of, take inventory of who's around us or what's around us. So examples of who these individuals might be. So some professionals might be, for instance, the adage, if you look good, you feel good. That's a part of increasing your positive quality of life. And if you feel good, then you can do more in your caregiver role. And that's the same for the care recipient. When they look good, they may feel better as well. So this applies to them as well. Um, your hairstylist or your barber. This might be somebody who's key in your quality of life team because they make you look good, so you end up feeling good. Or your service coordinator. They're key to a lot of us who are juggling a lot of different services or a lot of different appointments and therapies and things like that. Also, you might be thinking of some associates. So an associate might be, maybe you know another special needs caregiver, or somebody from a club or a coworker who you might only interact with loosely, but when you interact with them, it feels like a really good, sort of light interaction. So they might be generally a part of your quality of life team. Or obviously a befriended neighbor. So I specify befriended because we have neighbors that we see in passing, but we don't interact with. Whereas another neighbor might be, we might share details about our life. We might have shared a meal before. We might have had a game night with each other. So they've actually become a friend or a relative, obviously. And I just encourage us all to try and think of others, or some that aren't listed here, who we think might be important in our lives, or in, helpful with our families, helping our families thrive. And I also encourage us to try to think of not just individuals who are right around us, because that's key too. Like, a lot of uh a lot of sources talk about having like, mentors that might not know they're your mentor, for instance. So this is along those same lines. So maybe there's somebody from a social site, maybe Facebook, or somebody who has a YouTube channel, who gives great advice that motivates you, or shares information that's really important to, things that you're doing. Or organization leaders. Maybe there's somebody who you like the work that they're doing, in a specific area, or it motivates you to keep going. That might be somebody that you generally put on your quality of life team. Or authors or podcasters who might cover helpful topics, or they have hosts, who have interesting guests that talk about topics that you care about or that help you feel better in life. Those are individuals you can consider as well. So going on to what life looks like without, a quality of life team. So it's said that the resource for this, stat will also be on the reference or resource slide. But stats reveal that between 40 and 70% of family caregivers experience clinical symptoms of depression, which can often be caused by feelings of isolation and loneliness associated with the caregiving experience. Now, obviously, we don't want to feel like, we don't want to make care recipients feel as if they're a burden and you make me stressed out. But this is a reality, because of the nature of um, the caregiving role. It often doesn't come with a lot of breaks. It covers so many different areas of life. And it's a need. It's not something that's really optional. So it does create different obstacles that are realistic. But traveling, being able to travel your caregiver journey or your different ability journey with some zest as opposed to going through this whole thing with dread or anxiety are the key things that are why we need a quality of life team. Because again, like I mentioned earlier, we're social beings. So because caregivers tend to feel, we tend to feel like our situation isn't understood. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but we tend to feel like our situation isn't understood. And when we feel that way, we tend to want to pull back from those individuals who we feel like don't understand us, or if we see certain things happening on social sites and things like that that we don't identify with, we don't want to be a part of those conversations or constantly see that, because it's a reminder that we are different, our lifestyle is different. So that tends to lead to things like loneliness and helplessness, and obviously we have exhaustion quite constantly. And that obviously is going to alter your mood. And if your mood is altered, obviously, if you're feeling hopeless or depressed, you're going to have limitations. You're not going to be motivated to do certain things, whether that's with work around the house or for yourself. And once that happens, it can become easy for you to feel unfulfilled. And once you feel unfulfilled, obviously you'll have an overall challenging quality of life. And that's what we don't want to get to. And it's easy to get there. So that's why this is really important to put it into place, not as an option, but as something that's really necessary. So I think that one of the tips that we had on the flyer for this workshop was making a mental or physical list of some of the typical things that you need every day as a caregiver. And at the end of the week, just looking at what have you been able to meet, what needs have you been able to meet. So just using that as a way to try and stay on top of like cultivating positive emotions as opposed to these things that we see highlighted here. I think that's really important to do. So something else that caregivers tend to feel um, is that we don't have a chance to reset or rejuvenate because everything sort of bleeds into each other. The next task is waiting before we're finished the previous task. And this goes on every day. And that's when it can start looking like this tunnel here of like hopelessness, so to speak. But it is realistic, it's statistical that we have fewer chances to rejuvenate and reset because of the monotony of the high stress moments that we're in. And that's the reason why the reality of that is the reason why there exists respite sort of places or services, because that's a reality for caregivers. It's not something like we're imagining or complaining about. So hopefully you don't feel that way. But taking on most or all of caregiving tasks will leave you less time to interact, doing the things that you like to do. Maybe you like to knit, maybe you like to read or paint, or just sort of zone out or watch TV for a certain amount of time, but you have to keep getting up to help. All of those things can be interrupted easily in the caregiver lifestyle. And again, that's just something that we want to watch out for. And if we put the right people in place, we can sort of thwart those things from happening or interrupt those things from happening. So this is something that I can identify with. I wanted to deny it, but I know that it's true. One statistic noted that that caregivers experience a third increase in negative health symptoms after assuming caregiver responsibilities, and also that we tend to use over-the-counter medicine and prescription medicine more than people who aren't caregivers. Um, that's a little jarring. That kind of gave me pause a little bit, and it's jarring because I know that I am somebody who tends to think that I need to get back to me immediately because nobody else is coming to help me do certain things. So I'm like, the quicker I can get back to feeling like myself, then I need to do that. And usually that's pop a Tylenol or whatever the case is, when really I might just need to rest longer than I'm willing to rest. So maybe I only want to give myself like a 15-minute rest, but I need to lay down for 45 minutes and tell people not to talk to me. That might be the better solution than trying to get a quick fix of maybe Tylenol or whatever the case is to get back to what I'm feeling. And being faced with this is a part of the lifestyle of being a caregiver, because we we aren't living a life with more flexibility, more freedoms, or more ease. And that's all the more reason to have other people in our lives to delegate certain things to. which is our quality of life team members. So how do we try and do that? How do we create considerations for, what considerations do we take on to try and create a quality of life team? So we have to work to restore our sense of contentment with life. So this can be done through small acts of connecting. And I think a lot of us probably think it's like a whole production. It's like a whole shebang we need to go through to interact with other people, but that's not the case. We have to remember that we don't have to reinvent the wheel like with socializing. Just look to the communities that you're already a part of for supportive resources. We don't have to like find like a brand new club or interact with a brand new set of people right out the gate. That's not what we really need to do. Um, and if we encourage others to share with their networks, then that can allow others to kind of beeline back to you, which then spreads your social network very easily that way too. So you don't even have to do a whole lot of work. And also connecting with other people obviously helps you gain a different perspective than the perspective you would have if it's just you. So if you think how I used to be someone who catastrophize a lot. So what I mean by that is as soon as one thing sort of went wrong, I'm like, oh my God, then it's going to be this. Oh no, then that's going to lead to this. And then it's going to lead to this. I catastrophize all the time. But if you bring in other individuals who aren't in the same mental place as you or the same place of exhaustion as you, they can see a little bit clearer from different perspectives and they can give you a better frame of mind to work from. So borrowing their frame of mind is what we can do if we're interacting with other healthy individuals. But if we just stay into ourselves, we just continue the cycle that's already in our heads. So that's what we don't want to do. And there's another source that notes that we should be encouraged to create emotion ships. So those are supposed to be like relationships that we have with other people to help us manage our moods. So we don't want to put everything on other people, but you can sort of keep to yourself that a specific friend, because of the way that they are lighthearted or the way that they see certain things, they might be your quote unquote emotion ship because they really help you manage your moods. That can be a way of looking at it. There are also what's called emergency friends, but I think we should tread lightly with that because I don't think anybody wants to feel like you've signed them up to be like your crisis care friend. I don't think anybody wants to sign up for that over the long term. And it can start to feel like one-sided for them. So we want to add these people into our network, but we want to also make sure that um, we are still building full friendships, that is mutual. And we know that sometimes when we are opting to create full friendships or associations, that's going to require a little bit. And sometimes we don't want to think about having to do anything else outside of what we're already doing. So that also makes us kind of scale back with socializing too. But my recommendation is just to just go slowly and don't think of it like it needs to be a production. Just do what you can and do it on your terms. But you still have to be considerate of other people and what they need from a mutual friendship or association. So obviously considering your particular support that's needed. So do you need physical help? Like, is your mental okay? And you just need like physical help. That tends to be my thing. Like I have certain things in place for covering those areas, but physically, I don't want to do dishes 5 times a day because we're trying out different meals that she won't eat or physically cleaning things and that sort of stuff. So just think about, is your particular the support that you particularly need, is it in every area? Is it more so physical? Is it more emotional? That'll gear you to the right individuals that you want on your quality of life team. Also, the social safety theory is something that comes up where making sure that where you're interacting, the support and supportive environment that you're creating, is there a sense of belonging and security within that social group with those individuals? Just keep that in mind. And also not restricting yourself. So for instance, if I think that I might need help, um, I might have a lot of appointments that I have to schedule, and that takes a lot out of my time. And there's something that you can do. I think it's Fiverr and some websites like that, where you can actually hire like a virtual assistant, or even if it's a family member or a friend, um, hire a virtual assistant. And I'm talking about pennies. I'm talking about like $7 a project or something, to schedule certain things for you, or to just research certain things for you. So you can take that off of you. There are just different things that you can use, that you can put in place if you just think outside the box. But you have to identify what your needs are specifically, not just overall, or looking at things as a one size fit all. So something else that we can do is acknowledging self. I spoke to this again earlier, where you need to do things that establish your sense of self or maintain your sense of self. So just think about the things that you like doing particularly. Like some individuals might like to go biking. Some people like to try different restaurants. Some people love getting their nails done. Some people like to walk the mall. Just different things. So just think back when you felt really fulfilled, and what were you doing? Like, were there certain hobbies? Were there certain things that you were doing? Um, was it once a week? Was it every weekend? What just think in terms of that, and considering the long term, you can commit to tweaking your schedule or adding these things in once a month or so. You don't have to think about every week I'm going to have to think this through and figure something out, because then that becomes something that you probably want to avoid. So just look at it like a marathon, not a sprint. And you don't need a large quality of life team. So don't think about like it's a nonprofit and you need 10 board members. You don't need to think of it that way. You can, like I said from the previous slide, just think of what you need specifically. And you can sort of identify how many positions are there. What do I need people to help me fulfill, and that sort of thing, and sort of work backwards. And don't be extremely flexible with this sort of thing, like establishing what hobbies you might want to get back into and that sort of stuff. Look at it as a real investment in your long-term quality of life, so you won't feel guilt about what you're doing. And actually, when you get into these activities, you may connect with individuals who might connect you to more individuals or more resources. So for instance, you might maybe want to get into a bowling league, or maybe you're a car person, like a car club. And sometimes when you interact with these individuals, they may even hold like fundraisers for you in tough times, or provide a space for respite care while you enjoy your hobby nearby. So all of these things are possible through you just actually doing something that you like. So you can see the connection to the person you're providing care for and yourself, and it's something you like. So you won't have to, feel guilty about actually indulging in that. So you can really just start from there. And this is going into the same thing. So just where do I start? Just showing up in your community, and starting small. So just starting a conversation. So you might go to a community event, and I'm not saying go to something where you have to be the one that brings 36 cupcakes. I'm just saying just go to an event that's already pieced together. You're showing up. Maybe you might stand next to somebody who looks like they're having a good time, and you might compliment the decorations there. Something as small as that can start a conversation, and you can turn really small moments into a moment of connecting. And then that creates the opportunity to sort of foster this sort of interaction, and then an association, and then full on support maybe for both of you. So basically knowing your options, like knowing what's out there. And that's something that Vision for Equality can help with, if you need like a list of organization, maybe like condition specific organizations. Like there are organizations specific to individuals with specific diagnoses that are out there. There are specific residential facilities or programs. And you can find these organizations, or find individuals that way as well. So I'm not going to read these things, but these are things that I just want us to look at and consider for creating a quality of life team. So why sometimes we tend to dismiss why we should do any of these things, because we just want to get down to the business, so we can just lay down. But the thing is, why we deserve a team. Look at all of these typical things that are a part of caregiving tasks that we might do on a daily basis or a weekly basis. And I'm not saying that you deserve a quality of life team to help you create a quality of life for the long term just because you're performing, but because of who you are, because you're somebody who chooses to do for another person in a way that can actually create hardship for you, but you're still doing it. And simply just being a human being, that you were given a life to live, and your life has a right to be its own thing, separate from the person that you're giving care to. And that is why you deserve a quality of life team. So I encourage us to try and visualize the future that we want and who we imagine being there. What are we wearing? What does it look like? What are we going to feel like when we get there? Just relishing in what might be there, but also taking note in progress we've already made, where we are today. And the key to that, to holding on to that, is um, as much as possible, try not to taint that picture that you're visualizing of your future. Um, and try not to taint your hope, and try not to taint your motivation by keeping those thoughts strong. And the way that you can keep those motivating thoughts strong is avoiding things that are going to tamper that motivation down. So that might be avoiding TV shows, or avoiding certain music that'll bring you down, avoiding conversations that are ineffective or don't bring you anything positive, or conversations that sort of bring your energy down. All of those things can lead to a lesser quality of life. So if we just be proactive in that regard, I think it's key for us to be able to hold on to our motivation and not go to the things that we said earlier, where's the depression or the helplessness. And if we have the right people, the quality of life team around us to remind us as well, we don't just have ourselves, I think we'll do better when we're in an instance like that. And this was something that I really wanted to share because this is the first time I came across this, the Caregiver Bill of Rights. So I'm not going to read all of these, obviously, but just some of them are just, I think, great reminders for us, because we tend to forget. And I think these are key things that we sometimes feel guilty about, but we shouldn't. So, for instance, having the right to take care of ourselves. So, just like I mentioned, some of us want to go to the hairstylist or a barber, or we want to go take a walk, or whatever the case is. We have to remember that it's not an act of selfishness. Um, and it gives you, when you take care of yourself, you are in a better position to take care of the person who's receiving care. And also, number three was something that I think I just spoke to on one of the previous slides, that you have the right to maintain parts of your own life that don't include the person that you care for. And that's not dismissing them, but that's just going back to what I said about um, that we have our own life to live, and you have a right to make that a separate thing. Um, and just as you would if there are reasonable things that you have to do for yourself, then you shouldn't feel guilty about that. And obviously you can go through these other ones that are here, because you'll end up getting the slides later. And there's also the link for this caregiver bill of rights as well.
Yeah, that's
Were you
someone
saying
had
something?
posted there in the chat, Sherelle, about where we found it. So there is a link in the
Oh, okay.
resources, right? There's a
Yeah.
link to where we get the Bill of Rights, the Caregiver Bill of Rights is in the resource, and
Yeah.
you'll be get everybody register, get a copy of the
Hmm.
PowerPoint, and then you also get the this recording.
Yeah.
But I'll be able to put the link here too in the chat shortly so that you have it before you even get the recording. Right. Sorry
Yeah.
for interrupting.
Hmm. Thank you, because I can't see the chat. But and I also wanted to highlight number 7. I have the right to take pride in what I'm doing and applaud the courage it's taken to meet the needs of my loved one. And that goes back to what I talked about, I think, in one of the first slides, where when you're looking for who's qualified to be a part of your quality of life team, somebody who recognizes and isn't competing with you in struggle, saying that their struggle is worse than yours, so you shouldn't be saying anything. Um, this is a part of that. So having somebody who's of quality on your team, who recognizes the reality of what you're doing and the sacrifice that it takes, that is a part of you. Having that kind of person around you that respects that is a part of fulfilling your caregiver bill of rights. I think that's a huge thing to take in. And also, another one I'll go through is I have the right to protect my individuality Am I right to make a life for myself that'll sustain me when my loved one no longer needs my full-time help? Or when somebody else decides to step in, if it's a lifetime a different ability or something like that, somebody else steps in and you can step back a little bit more. You don't want to be just starting out your life at that time. You want to be living now. So that's why it's encouraged that you do go ahead and take a step today to fulfill your life. And these are the final thoughts here. So remember your whole self. Please look at yourself as more than a caregiver, um, as more than the person who has to provide meals and schedule and protect and advocate and all of those. That you're way more than that. Um, those are great things. Those are incredible things. But you're, even though you are these incredible things, you're still more, which makes you more incredible. So please remember that, that your interests will lead you. This is something that we talked about through a couple of the slides. Just thinking about where you already are. What did you like before? Just try to remember what created those feelings, those warm feelings in you previously. What are you longing for? Like, what are you thinking about that you might think one day, I used to do this and I wish I could go back and do this and that. Those things will lead you to where you need to be. So if you can't, brainstorm, you can start there. Just start with where your interests are. And number three, allow your loved one to grow as well. This will in turn help you. So a lot of times we want to just go ahead and get things done. So we go ahead and step in, when if we just step back a little, take a breath and let them do what they're capable of, that'll make them feel great too. And it'll take something off of you. Sometimes I think we stop ourselves. I know I have, I'll speak for myself. Whereas sometimes I would get impatient and I would go ahead and take care of certain things when my daughter could clearly do it if I just gave her a few more minutes to do it. So sometimes it's us stopping us. So we have to know when that's the case as well. And somebody on your quality of life team might be strong enough to tell you that it's you. So you have to have someone on your team who could do that too. And lastly, boundaries can be gentle and firm at the same time. So just because you're setting a boundary for the sake of your own mental health or things like that, it doesn't have to be nasty or abrupt or things like that, but it can still be firm and you still don't have to move it. So don't subscribe to guilt just because you're setting a boundary. You have to realize the difference between that. And somebody who's not a quality of life team member might tell you when you set a boundary that you're being mean or things like that. But you have to remember um, those definitions are subjective. Some people, consider certain things to be mean because it's not what they want. You have to be able to identify that. Or if you're working on that, have a quality of life team member who can identify that for you and tell you, no, that's not true. Um, it's just that they don't like that you set a boundary. So those are things that we have to remember too. Boundaries are key for us getting ourselves back. And this is our contact information. I'm right there at the top and Shu is down there. And the resources that I mentioned will end up being here. But I'll leave this here, and I don't think I'll stop sharing because I'll leave this information here. And if anybody has any
Yeah, that's
questions or
fine.
wanted to share anything, oh, I'll
Yeah,
stop
thank you
sharing
so much,
too.
Joelle.
You want me to stop? I mean, not stop sharing, stop recording in case anybody wants to share anything.
Correct.
Okay.